And now let's continue Newswatch with our segment of ASEAN Ministerial Meeting. And now let's go over to Audrey Utoyo from TVRI World's mini studio at WISMA Bandy 46 on series of agendas on the last day of the ministerial meeting. Audrey, what do you have for us?
It is so great to be here. We are at the last day of the 56th ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting. We have had a long day today and these few couple of days with a slew of meetings. But first of all, to start you off, for today, Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi held a trilateral meeting with Norwegian Foreign Minister and Secretary General of ASEAN. In addition, the ASEAN Regional Forum meeting was also on today's agenda. Let's have a look.
Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi emphasized strengthening economic relations between ASEAN and Norway, highlighting significant cooperations in human rights, energy and climate change, and trade relations through ASEAN EFTA. Minister Retno also mentioned the importance of collaborations in the Indo-Pacific region and invited Norway to support the ASEAN outlook and enhance dialogue with Europe and the world. She also stressed the need for energy and climate change sectors to remain key areas of cooperation between ASEAN and Norway. The two countries agreed to provide funding of around $2.5 million for the next 4 years. Meantime, the ASEAN Regional Forum was established in 1994 to promote confidence-building measures in post-Cold War security architecture. The region faces challenges such as territorial disputes, ethnic conflicts, and emerging security challenges like terrorism in persons. As a result of such complexity, ASEAN must better manage potential conflicts and use ARF as a vehicle in aggressively waging peace, preventing any potential conflict in the region. Therefore, getting the ARF right is considered important.
Furthermore, believing that collaboration is the only compass towards an inclusive regional architecture, Foreign Affairs Minister Retno Marsudi said that ASEAN believes that the U.S. would continue to support ASEAN's centrality and reinforce ASEAN's position as an epicentrum of growth.
This was delivered by Minister Retno Marsudi at the ASEAN Post-Ministerial Conference with State Secretary Antony Blinken here in Jakarta. The U.S. is one of the most important partners for ASEAN. This year, ASEAN starts to mainstream implementations of the ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific with all partners, including the U.S., believing that collaborations is the only compass towards inclusive regional architecture. Minister Retno Marsudi said that ASEAN welcomes all nations to join in forging interactions within the Indo-Pacific. That is why ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific was created as a united resolutions for the region. Achieving peace, stability, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific would not only be a regional triumph, but a global one too. As ASEAN's comprehensive strategic partnership, the U.S. holds key to making such aspirations a reality, and that ASEAN needs the U.S. to become a significant net contributor to the Indo-Pacific.
Thank you very much, Tony. Before we continue our meeting, I kindly request the media to leave the room for the closed session. Thank you very much, colleague from the media.
In the meantime, senior diplomat Wang Yi, who is also the director of Central Foreign Affairs Office of China, and the United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken met and held discussions while attending the ASEAN meeting today.
In the discussion, Wang called on the U.S. to work with China to improve relations between the two countries. The talks between Wang and Blinken in Jakarta marked their second meeting in less than a month. Last month, they met when Blinken made an official visit to Beijing, which was the first visit by a U.S. Secretary of State in the past 5 years. In the meeting in Jakarta, Blinken reportedly expressed concerns about alleged Chinese cybersecurity threats after Microsoft claimed that state-backed hackers from China had breached email accounts of U.S. government agencies. Meanwhile, according to a statement from Chinese Foreign Ministry, Wang urged Washington to stop interfering in Beijing's affairs. Not only that, Wang also called on the U.S. to stop pressuring China in economics, trade, science, and technology, as well as lifting unjustified and unreasonable sanctions against China.
Furthermore, at the 56th ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting held in Jakarta, booths as well as places are provided for MSMEs to display their products. Let's take a look. Meeting will not be complete without the participation of micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, and the establishment of the Discover Indonesia booth at the exhibition. A number of MSMEs took part and showcased their prime products. There are exhibition products on display representing Indonesia's finest goods, such as batik, rattan bag, and a wide range of other goods. The AMM event held in Indonesia is hoped to benefit Indonesia's MSMEs and promote the country's rich culture. And that is it for the report today from the 56th ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting. Uli, we are currently still here awaiting and looking forward for the press conference that will commence very soon. And now back to you, Uli Herdi, in the studio.
Thank you, Audrey Utoyo, for the update. And now let's move on to another ASEAN report. Foreign ministers of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, have been engaged in a series of meetings in Jakarta this week, discussing key and pressing issues along with partner countries. As ASEAN member countries are essentially multipolar, and the regional bloc contends with deep internal divisions and growing external security concerns, reaching a binding applicable consensus is indeed a tough task to achieve.
The 56th ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting, or AMM, began in Jakarta on Monday. With less than half a year left of Indonesia's ASEAN chairmanship, Jakarta has been under increasing pressure to make progress on some of the bloc's most intransigent issues, from the protracted Myanmar crisis to increasing tensions in the Indo-Pacific and fears of further militarization. Discussions held were focused on maintaining regional stability, whether by setting up rules of engagement in the contested South China Sea, swaying key countries to pledge to keep Southeast Asia and the broader Indo-Pacific nuclear weapons free, or advancing the human rights agenda in a region that has seen notable regressions in recent years. Above all else, ASEAN's effort to restore peace in conflict-torn Myanmar were apparently the most anticipated event. More than 2 years since the successful military coup in Naypyidaw, ASEAN has struggled to advance its Myanmar peace initiative, the 5-point consensus, which calls for an immediate cessation of violence, dialogue among all parties to the conflict, the appointment and engagement of a special envoy to the country, and Myanmar's acceptance of humanitarian assistance. Amid calls to explore alternative ways to resolve the protracted Myanmar coup crisis, ASEAN Chair, Indonesia, is launching a review of the implementation of the 5-point consensus for peace. The announcement came after a closed-door meeting on Wednesday on the latest development in Naypyidaw, including reports of a top Thai diplomat meeting with ousted Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi, a move which has apparently subverted the bloc's Myanmar strategy and Indonesia's leadership. ASEAN leaders had agreed to review the bloc's Myanmar strategy at last year's summit in Phnom Penh to add measurable indicators with a specific timeline. But 6 months into Indonesia's chairmanship, no review had taken place, prompting criticism of Jakarta, including for the UN Special Rapporteur on Myanmar. The peace plan has apparently failed to stop violence in Myanmar. In April, the Myanmar military launched its most fatal airstrike of the conflict in central Sagaing region, killing more than 100 people. There have also been increased reports of the junta blocking or appropriating humanitarian aid and some stakeholders refusing to hold peace talks. Analysts have welcomed Jakarta's plans to review the 5-point consensus, alleging the consensus had been badly executed. However, Retno Marsudi reasserted ASEAN's non-intervention approach, saying the bloc would only facilitate peace dialogue and that all domestic political decisions would be Myanmar-led. On Wednesday, Thailand Foreign Minister Don Pramudwinai told reporters that Thailand remained faithful to the 5-point consensus, including during his meeting with Suu Kyi on Sunday. Pramudwinai did not disclose details of the meeting, yet encouraged ASEAN to start including the Myanmar junta in its talks, a proposal that Indonesia has previously rejected. Pramudwinai's meeting with Suu Kyi was the country's second bilateral encounter with the junta government against the wishes of ASEAN. In June, Thai diplomats met with junta representatives. As divisions looms in the bloc's attempt to seek solution for the Myanmar crisis, positive development has been reached in ASEAN's effort to resolve dispute in the South China Sea. ASEAN and China have agreed on guidelines to accelerate negotiation for the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea. The guidelines were adopted during the meeting between ASEAN foreign ministers and directors of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party, Wang Yi, in Jakarta on Thursday. There have been so many interesting developments taking place in the region. They all call for a more flexible ASEAN, a more mature ASEAN that is capable of moving forward. Some analysts have suggested that this is an opportunity for Indonesia as the ASEAN chair to have the courage to abandon and move away from holding pattern mode into problem-solving mode. The AMM runs until today and will include the security-heavy ASEAN Regional Forum as well as the East Asia Summit Foreign Ministers meeting. The talks are expected to produce a much-awaited joint communique which charts ASEAN's progress on a variety of key issues. A statement by Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi that Indonesia would like to see ASEAN play a central role as a contributor to or locomotive of peace and stability in the region really speaks the volume.